Edgar Amos joins us next. He's the Chief of Staff to the Governor of Adamawa State. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, of course, many looking to see how across the country, as a matter of fact, the question of palliatives, what are the governors doing in their first 100 days? Have they been able to affect or impact lives positively? Well, some news came through from Adamawa not long ago about some palliatives. What can you tell us now about how the state government has impacted lives in the last 100 days?
Thank you very much, Chamberlain, and I am appreciative of this privilege. For us, we think that the re-election of Ahmadu Umaru Fintiri provides not just Adamawa indigenes, but indeed the whole country a reason to celebrate. Because we think that the 2023 elections is arguably the most topical issue since the advent of democracy in the country. Because I think it is one event where the entire democratic enterprise was probably threatened. And so the re-election and eventual swearing in of Ahmadu Umaru Fintiri provides Adamawa people and indeed all lovers of democracy to celebrate, because we saw a triumph of democracy, a triumph of the will of the people, and so on and so forth. So, but specifically on the issue of palliatives, immediately the policy pronouncement was made by the federal government that subsidy was going to be removed or has been removed. The governor immediately set up a committee under my chairmanship to design measures towards mitigating the pains that will result from that. And we indeed embarked on a research on what the situation was before the subsidy removal and what the situation is after the subsidy removal. And we looked at it in respect of cost of transportation, cost of livelihood, cost of family inputs, and so on and so forth. And we designed very robust strategies, even before the federal government started talking about whether it is 2 billion or like they say 5 billion and all that. But the Adamawa state government has been proactive in that regard. And
all right. If I could just jump in, since you're in charge of that committee, what template are you using? First, is it published so that everybody can access it and know that really and truly this is a transparent platform, transparent list or document that the state government is relying on for this purpose?
Let me make a correction. I am the chairman of the committee that designed what needed to be procured, but I am not the chairman or even a member of the committee that designed the template for the distribution. However, since I'm chief of staff, I'm in the know of the template. Yes, the committee is chaired by the secretary to the state government with first-class traditional rulers, the DSS, the NUJ, the religious bodies, members of the House of Assembly, the local government chairman. It's all members of civil society, NEMA, ATSEMA, as the case might be. So it's well published, publicized. Everybody knows the template. Now, this was done when the governor was on leave and the acting governor was in place. So the template is there. By the way, for the allowances to civil servants, it's not about template, it's about implementation. So 10,000 naira has been added on top of the salaries of civil servants and on the allowances, the pensions for those who are pensioners on the payroll of the state government. That has been implemented. We've procured buses for transportation, to ease transportation. So the template is on the grains. Again, on the fertilizer, we procured about 100 trucks of fertilizer. It has been seamlessly distributed to civil servants, to people out in the society. But the issue of template is on the grains. Now, before the governor came back, the template was that it was going to be subsidized. Now, he came a day before the grains were to be distributed at subsidized rate. But immediately he returned, he decided that instead of subsidizing it, it should be given free. Now, that affected the distribution template because of necessity now, the focus will be on the most vulnerable members of the society. And like in the past, those who could afford the subsidized rate will receive them. But for now, it is going to be free. So the most vulnerable are those who are now being targeted for access to those grains, because we feel that that is the way to go. So that is for starters.
So what is the regularity of access to these grains? Beyond that, is that something that will improve their purchasing power?
Absolutely. Adamawa is largely a civil service state. So if every civil servant has his income up, it's going to affect the purchasing power of the people in the society. If the pensioners have something that is added onto their monthly pensions, it definitely will affect that. And if you also provide fertilizer and farming inputs, the price in the market will be affected, even for those who have not received it. But for those who have access to it, it will enhance their ability to go to the farms and produce more food, and it will also reduce the price in the market. The same thing with the grains. Those who receive them will have food in their stomachs. Those who are not able to get, even those who have it in the market, the prices will also go down. The cost of transportation will go down, and that will have a roller coaster effect on the cost of other things as well. So these are the templates, and the committee at the state level, it is designed in a manner that it will be replicated at the local government level, it will be replicated at the ward level, and even at the unit level.
So, Dr. Amos, if I may ask this question, staying with the palliatives matter, is there a register, like a social register you're working with, or you're just going ahead as far as you're a resident in Adamawa State, you benefit from the palliatives?
There is a social register, but we are not religiously adhering to it because we have questions on how the register was designed in the first place. So there is a social register, yes. But we also believe that working with the communities, because we have question marks about how the social register was arrived at in the first instance. But since we now have respected members, traditional rulers down to the grassroots level, we have the councillors, we have legislators, we have religious members of the religious bodies, we have robust enough to be able to identify. We think that there will be a consensus along that line.
Okay, so
I don't know whether you get it.
Yeah, we got you there. But when you say there are questions as to how that register was put together, one would believe that the register was put together in the previous, in the last 4 years. This is a re-election, this is a new tenure. In the last 4 years, probably that's how that register was put together. So if you're saying you're questioning that, are you saying that your predecessor in your office right now, you were head of service at that time, in the last administration, you were head of service. So are you saying that your predecessor didn't do a very good job of putting it together or coordinating the activities around that?
Respect to Professor Maxwell Girado, who was my immediate predecessor as Chief of Staff to the Governor of Adamawa. Very brilliant submissions. But not just by the state government, it has contributions from the federal government and from other. But even if it is by the state government, for us to admit that we have questions about it, have questions about the way it is arrived at. And we are not discarding it entirely. We are only thinking that in this era now, we have a more reliable means of reaching.
Okay.
Which is much more credible than that.
Dr. Amos, okay, let's leave the register and go on. You purchased buses worth about R1 billion thereabout. What's the plan? How are they going to be rostered to move around? I think what the government is planning is that they're supposed to ease transportation. But the buses are not even enough, won't even be enough. So how are they going to be rostered to ensure that they're effective? And sustainability.
Yes. Which are not going to be the only ones. The immediate focus of these buses is the intra-city transportation within the metropolis for civil servants. We have already identified routes that these buses will ply. The kind of buses that have about 58 people sitting and about 46 standing. 10 buses will even be too much for the metropolis. So we also believe we will deploy some of them for Man, Gire, and even beyond. But we also have plans to purchase buses for the interlocal government transportation. This we are going to buy. And perhaps I may add that we bought them from Innocent Motors, which is like buying Niger and growing Niger. So buses that we have on the carts, but this will ease transportation. Then beyond that too, As to sustainability, that is a very good question. We are looking at three options: whether to run them entirely by government or by the private sector concessioning them. Again, we think that is not the social implication where we want to ease the cost of transportation, because the private sector the model we are now working towards is a private-public partnership where the government has brought in and invested in it, but the private sector will come in with technology. The funds will be generated and remitted, whereby the recouping its investment in terms of a percentage from what they generate. We think that it's for the private sector running. After all, it is government that bought those buses. So we take question. And so we think that with the public-private partnership, it is going to be sustainable.
So when does the government plan to finalize on that and deploy the buses?
Sooner rather than later. After all, the buses are here. So if we don't deploy, they are here because we want to operate them. By the way, we have those teams to train them. We brought in technology on how they will be maintained. So there is an ongoing partnership. And they are already in town training and technicians on how the
I think we lost that connection with the Chief of Staff, Mr. Amos, so we'll try and get that connection back. But it's interesting, he says, that they're trying to see how they finalize on that and deploy those buses among several other measures that they are putting in place, because that is a very key component. There's been a lot of focus at the center, and now part of us asking questions of what the states are doing. So let's see if we can get him back. So we need to get some input about the 5 billion naira that the government also gave to states. Let me say, Amos, are you still there? Okay, we'll try and get that, because we need to find out what states, how are they deploying that, what platforms, what register, what documents are they using? Is it one that if they use today, next government comes in, it will be acceptable, and not say, look, we don't know the methodology, how credible, or the integrity of this document. We hear that narrative time and again. It's something that you do not want to hear again, because if you spend a lot of money and resources, you deploy human capital and all of that to get those documents, I think it should be one that should be acceptable across board. So hence the need to ensure that you do all of those things well.
Yeah, it's interesting what the conversation is happening, how they're going about and distributing the palliatives to ensure that it gets to the how do you say it now? I don't want to use the normal, grassroots. It gets to the grassroots. So it's really interesting, as again, the sustainability of all of that.
Let's try let's see if we can, Dr. Amos, we were going to ask, we know that there was that announcement by the federal government about palliatives to state in terms of the 5 billion and the first tranche that has been distributed to the state. So what can you tell us about what Adamawa has received and how they're proceeding with it?
Like I mentioned earlier, for us, we started the issue of palliatives before the federal government started that discussion. But the Adamawa state government has accessed 2 billion naira so far, not 5 billion naira. And before they came, we had already, the buses, like you said, is about 1.06 billion naira. We had already purchased 100 trucks of fertilizers. But what we are getting from the federal government at the moment, what we have had is 50 trucks of rice, and earlier 5 trucks of rice that arrived, and then another 50 trucks of rice. Then we are also getting trucks of maize. So we have not started distributing the maize because we have not gotten to that gotten that quantity yet. What we are hearing is that we will have over 100 trucks of maize from the federal government. We have gotten some quantity, but other quantities are yet to arrive. So this is the much that I can say the state government has accessed.
Okay, Dr. Amos, our colleagues in Lagos have some questions for you. Ayo Buki.
Thank you, Nelson. Let me begin. But first of all, it's commendable, Dr. Amos, that those vehicles are procured in Nigeria. So yes, we will strengthen the Naira more, and I'm hoping that other state governments will take a cue. But you know, there's something on that also that a number of state governments have done over the years, and that is to put pictures of the governor of the day on the vehicle and take around, or push to the city. Some way of campaigning, a number of people would say. And even in packaging palliatives, the bags of rice, for instance, that the governor, was giving out, a number of people would say that, okay, the picture of the governor is on it. What's the objective? Is that some kind of campaigning?
Well, we think that is petty, and it is an argument for those who are already comfortable. By the way, we have the photographs of Tinubu in all the offices of the country. Whether you voted for Tinubu or not, he is the president of Nigeria, and you must have his photograph. This is the governor of Adamawa State. Whether you voted for him or not, you have his photograph in offices, and whether it is a private office, by the way. So that it is on rice has advantages. It means that somebody who wants to go and sell it in the market will not do so, because this is already branded. So it's a way of checking the abuse of the process. And this is a governor that is loved by the people. So you see the picture of someone you love and you eat the rice from the bag. So be it. I mean, who in Adamawa State do you think his photograph will be on the rice, and then it will be a better distribution or better sale, for instance? Anybody who is hungry and is questioning the photograph on the back of the rice is not a hungry man.
Well, Dr. Amos, that's an interesting way to look at it. But still,
clearly, a hungry man will not question the photograph on the back of the rice. I don't think a hungry man will do that.
Well, let's look at other aspects of your palliative program in Adamawa State. The CNG buses, please confirm that indeed they're CNG powered. We know that the federal government CNG program is yet to take off. So do you have a specialized program for the buses to be CNG powered as they take off as part of your sustainability plan? Also, for the distribution of grains in the state, Adamawa is a state with a population of about 3.5 million or thereabout, or 4 million. What we see on television is, a half bag of rice or thereabout going to one individual. Is that the case also beyond what we see on television? Is that the rationing? Can it go that far through all of the residents in the state?
Well, two things. They are not CNG buses. We've not purchased them to run them on CNG, although they are convertible to CNG, but we are buying them to run them on diesel. We contemplated that issue, but we felt it's still a new terrain and we wouldn't rush into it. So they are, at the moment, diesel. On terms of the palliatives, before the governor came, the template and the committee recommended that the rice should be rebagged in 25 kilogram bags and sold at a subsidized price of 10,000 naira per bag. Bear in mind that in the market here in Adamawa State is about 48 to 50,000 naira per 50 kilogram. So 25 kg will be something in the region of 20-something thousand, 22, 23. So, but the plan by the distribution committee was that it should be subsidized at 10,000 naira for a 25 kilogram bag of rice. But the governor in his wisdom now said, no, it should be free. Now, in an attempt to get it free, it was also contemplated and desired and the decision taken that it should be rebagged in a 10 kilogram bag of rice and then distributed free of charge. Now, I concede that as a human endeavor, it's not going to be perfect. It's not a perfect world. And I think that there is no human being who will perfectly distribute this quantity of rice to the citizen. But what is clear is that we know leadership is a trust bestowed by God and the instrumentality of the people, and we take that trust sacredly. So we believe that we owe a responsibility to target the vulnerable groups. if we make mistakes, they are mistakes of the maybe head, not the heart. Our desire is that it should get to the target people. It should get to the most vulnerable in the society. The poor, the aged, women-led groups, women-led households, the disabled, and so on and so forth. We think that these are the target we'll start with before perhaps the civil servants and other members of the society. But clearly, and we believe that Adamawa people trust us. And so we intend to target them and alleviate their pains. We are doing it with the whole sincerity of our heart, knowing the sacred mandate that has been bestowed on us repeatedly. Let me say that Governor Ahmadu Umaru Fintiri is probably the only Nigerian to have taken the oath of office for governor about 4 times. So he has come to the job more than prepared. It's not the first time, it's not the second time, it's not the third time. So we think that we have been entrusted with the sacred mandate to alleviate the pains of the people, and we intend to discharge that with all our might and spiritual focus.
Indeed, Dr. Amos, and there are, there's the continuing part of the conversation on the register, which you say has been discarded for, an alternative distribution approach to it. We understand also that the federal government at the humanitarian ministry level is also reviewing that register, but that will also expand the conversation beyond this level. We'll hope that we'll get to have you some other time for further discussions on this. Thank you very much.